All right, we have a quorum. We'll call the May meeting to order for the Town of Liberty Grove Town Board. The clerk will note all supervisors are present, in addition to the treasurer, office assistant, and the clerk administrator. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have cell phones, if you wouldn't mind putting them on vibrate or turning them off so as not to interrupt the meeting, it would be appreciated. And a reminder to the board to please speak into the microphones. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we need to approve the agenda, and I would like to strike number 20. And also would like to suggest that we take number 17 and move that up underneath number 7, public input.
It follows 8 or 7 rather.
Yes, follow 7. Anybody else?
I move we approve the agenda, removing item 20 and moving item 17 up to just below item 7.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes of the March 26th joint meeting with the Plan Commission. Are there any additions or corrections to those? If not, the chair will move their approval as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second them.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Then we have the April board minutes of Wednesday, April 16th. Additions or corrections? If not, the chair will move their approval as presented.
I'll second it.
Seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And then we have the special board meeting of Tuesday, April 29th. Any additions, corrections? If not, the chair will move the approval as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Treasurer's report, Janet?
Okay, we begin in the municipal checking account with $588,675.94. Transportation aid came in a little interest, bringing that balance to $642,420.77. In the money market account, we have $210,445.09. Interest brought that balance to $210,479.68. The checking account, we began with a balance of $178,964.56. Deposits and transfers, state withholding, FICA, payroll, and disbursements brought that balance at the end of April to $45,310.71. Utility district ended with a balance in their 3 accounts of $244,936.27. And in the North Shore money market account, we began with a balance of $250,522.46. After interest posted, that balance is now $250,538.93. With a balance in all town accounts at the end of April of $1,393,686.36.
Any questions anybody has? The chair will then move the approval of the treasurer's report as presented. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Payment of bills.
I have one addition to the list there would be to Peninsula Flat Work for the sidewalk at the Ellison Bay boat launch, $3,920.
3,000 what, bud?
$3,920.
And that's to whom? Peninsula Flowers?
Peninsula Flat Work.
Any questions on the bills?
I'd like to ask a couple, just go through it. The Wagon Trail Incorporated costs and disbursements, is that the legal fees they incurred?
Correct.
And it says this budget amount for the Humane Society, what's GR Advancement?
Gills Rock,
Gills Rock, is that fireworks, basically?
yes.
Ellison Bay Service Club, that's the women's building down there?
Part of their operating expenses for the service club for their year as requested.
And then I had a question, LG is Liberty Grove History Society, the town has been supporting them, is that basically what's happening for?
Yeah, they asked for a budgeted amount, and all these amounts were cut by 30% during the budget time last year.
Okay. Skipping down to Vans Lumber says Liberty Park Bond, what is that about?
That's a deposit that these construction companies pay from their builder, or the person that builds. That's a bond, or called an occupancy deposit, that they get back after the project is totally done. It's supposed to be an incentive to get it done, the $400.
And so what is Liberty Park, and what are they doing at Liberty Park?
I don't really know.
Oh, they've done some extensive work inside down there.
And then skipping down, K and Anderson, BOA judgment, that's just attorney fees? More
Yeah,
attorney fees
it's
for the?
going back and forth on that amount you asked for up above there.
Okay. And I have a question about the health insurance, $5,600. How does the town pay everyone's health insurance as a blanket policy, or how does that work?
85%.
85%? And the participant pays 15? And what kind of a copay do they have? Do you know, just real quickly, or not?
Single is 2,000, family is 6,000. They have free preventative, your annual checkups. There's a 3-tier, prescription policy. I don't remember what the copay is if you have outpatient at it's $250 going into emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's a
that-
good number.
Depending on what it is, outpatient or however they admit you.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. And just real quickly, from Monroe Truck and MGD Industrials, that's like $500 worth of fasteners, if you get nuts and bolts?
Bolts and nuts, a wire
Is that
wheel.
like a 10-year supply or something, or what?
No, one bolt that we use there for the
Shoe on
wing
the plow?
is $36. It's a
Alright.
big bolt,
So they're hardened steel.
and they're about this big around.
All right, thank you, those answered my questions.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, the chair will, excuse me, move the approval of the bills as presented with the addition of the Peninsula Flatworks for $3,920. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, public input is next. This is the opportunity to address the board on any given subject and also on any agenda item on the agenda. Anybody want to address the board on an agendized item? Susan?
Yep, on 8, 9, 10, possibly 17 and 19.
Anybody else? This is just on the agendized item. Jim?
Number 8, 9, and 10.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm assuming, being that I was the sponsor of 10A, that you would want my comments, if not.
Correct.
And I would like also to address under number 7, public input, some freelance comments I'd like to make, please.
Jim?
Are you also inviting general comments?
Yeah, in just a second. I wanted to get the agendized first. Okay, general comments. All right, Susan, do you want to step to the podium, please?
I just would like to say on behalf of Wagon Trail Incorporated, which is Raleigh's Bay Resort, that we are very pleased to see that you're going to pay this bill that you received notice on in March. And I hope that this does once and for all settle that you did sue us, or you would not be paying us for our damages on the suit. So seriously, I hope that afterwards that you can at least, maybe some of you, admit that you did in fact sue the resort, which I've got none of you to admit, except for Hugh. I've got none of you to admit that yet. And the fact that you're paying us means that you did.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Paul Goodman, Ellison Bay. First off, it's great that these are being recorded so they're on YouTube because it keeps me up
Correct.
to speed during the winter. The other question I have is regular meetings, committee meetings. How are you doing minutes on those? Are you recording those meetings, or are you paper doing them, or is there a way to do those so we can see some of those meetings, or maybe you don't want to do those, you know? But is it possible to record them some way so they can be played back at long distance when you're traveling, so at least you can know where everybody's going with everything?
In the past, the Highway Committee meetings have been verbally recorded, plus the written. We're going to start recording with the recorder all committee meetings. We've been in a discussion as to whether we should record the all committee meetings for the YouTube. I don't know if we're anywhere on that at this point in time.
Yeah, it'd be kind of easy because you can pick them up wherever you are, then
Right.
at least you can stay, that way we're not here coming back, being away, and you're trying to get up to speed and wasting your time trying to bring us back to speed.
Good point.
Which is pretty good. And the other thing that I haven't seen on there is I have a question on the community kitchen. They were doing a community kitchen study, and what phase are you in on that, and where is that study going? I haven't heard anything on it at all, so I didn't know if it's continuing or.
She is just beginning her research, and we're looking for volunteers to help. I think she started last week, and there's a meeting coming up, and I'll have to get that date for you. I don't know if you've got it offhand, Janet, or not. David Studebaker is going to head up the town's liaison on that. So-
Okay, that was David Studebaker?
Yes,
Okay, and then Pat is, Pat
Carlson.
Carlson? Okay. Good. At least I can get in contact just to see where it's going and what's going on
Sure.
with it then. Very good, thank you.
Yes, Jim?
Jim Moronic, Ellison Bay. I'm confused about the sequence of some of the items on the agenda, specifically citizen feedback on conflicts, which appears to come after highway committee appointments and after considering the advisory motion. And it would seem to me that you would want to invite that feedback before making decisions about highway committee appointments. Is that not true?
No, I think when we got to the Highway Committee, I have a comment to make in reference to my request from Mr. Zafney for specific cases.
Would that not be item number 8?
No,
Isn't that the advisory motion you're
that is
referring to?
the advisory motion coming from the annual meeting.
Yeah,
But at the last meeting, I asked Carl if he had specific cases of a conflict of interest. The board needs to know that
yes.
to make its decision.
I would
Well,
And
disagree with that.
that related to the highway appointments.
yes. Well, then I guess I'll comment again when we get to number 8. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mike Walker, 10985 Hillcrest Road, Sister Bay. I'm the chairman of the Highway Committee. I'd like to make a couple of comments of my own. They do not come as the chairman of the committee or from the committee. I was very distressed by this letter from Carl Zapfe of 11 May 2014 to the town, each one of which you received a copy of. It was to John Lowry, but you each received a copy of it according to this. In my judgment, he made some very questionable comments, and I'm not going to get into those point by point. I just want it noted on the record that I disagree strongly with that letter. And the reason that I think that it comes in, dovetails into other subjects, is because of items 8, 9, and 10, essentially 8 and 9 primarily. And I'm not going to comment on that unless the board has a question of me as the Highway Committee Chairman. But I'd like to point out a couple of things. I think there's undue deference paid to this group identifying itself as the NDNA. And I'll leave it at that, except that I cannot find more than 8 or 10 people that are members of this group that at least admit to being members. I have attempted in my chairmanship of the Highway Committee to defer to these folks, both on the Garrett Bay Road project and other subjects, and it seems like no matter what I say, do, or whatever our committee does or says is not good enough. I would point out to the board that, as most people on the board know, when I need an opinion, I pay for it. I call Randy Nesbitt, who is an attorney for many towns and villages in the county, and I ask Randy the questions, and he sends me a bill. And that way I'm not under any obligation to either report it, not report it. It's my bill. And one of the things that he tells me, because I've asked him now twice on this, thankfully he only sent me one bill, is that committee appointments are at the discretion of the chair. And the reason that I've been advised of this is that the committee, as I said at the annual meeting, spends no money. Any recommendation a committee makes is subject to the approval by the town board, and the committee can recommend anything it wishes, except, and that will not necessarily be done unless the town board approves it. I would also point out that if it was up to me as the Highway Committee Chairman, with no disrespect to Mr. Barkey or Kim Shumway or Gary here, I would have the 4 members of the town crew, plus Pat Hockers, plus Bud Collins on that committee. And I say that because who better to make comments about roadways than the people that build and maintain them? When I was assessor in the town of Bailey's Harbor, Jim Parent as chairman, Dale Williams as owner of Harbor Construction, and Bobby Schultz, who's been on the highway committee or on the highway department as a worker for many years, redid Highway F, the downtown blacktop, and installed curb, installed gutter in under 30 days because they knew what to do, they knew how to get it done, they knew how to let bids, and all 3 of them as town board members had a lot of expertise, historically and current. And my feeling is that what's being overlooked in these comments about highway committee appointments is that Jay and Bud and Pat especially know highways. They know how to build them, they know how to maintain them. And so I would like to make that point. And finally, when it comes to percentages, and I did this based on a conversation I had with Jill Lau of the county clerk's office, who is the county clerk, and I asked her how many registered voters are there in the town of Liberty Grove, and this was on a conversation I had with her back on 2 April, and she commented to me at that time there were 1,586 total voters in the town of Liberty Grove. Now, according to her count, there were 487 voters in the 2 April election. So that's a voting percentage of 31%. And before anyone gets excited about that, I would point out that Mr. Cavazos got 293 votes, Mr. Mulliken 253, Mr. Farber 249. Mr. Cavazos' number of votes, if you take 293 and divide it into 1586, that's 18.47% of the vote, which Mr. Cavazos received. The others a lower amount, under 16%, because the majority of people in Liberty Grove don't feel the necessity to vote. And I would like to say that before there's complaints emanating from the hinterland, so to speak, that I believe that people should at least take the time to vote. And if they do so, and if they do not do so, then it's not the town board's fault. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else, general comment? Okay, if
Mr.
not.
Chairman?
Yes, go
Could
ahead.
I
Joe.
make quick comments on 3 issues that aren't on the agenda, if I could, please? As a public input.
Go ahead.
Sure. One thing is that I went down Garrett Bay, Isleview Road where the car went off in the swamp. And I commented to Bud, I said, there doesn't appear to be any kind of shoulders on that road. And appears to as if the shoulders are something about this size. And the state is pretty clear about how wide the shoulders should be. And so I wonder if the county, or the town is taking some sort of a task upon itself. It might get sued if someone actually goes off the road there again and flips into the swamp like the last car did. An easy solution to that, I would think, might be to put a stop sign on either side of the swamp and post a speed limit down to a much lower limit there to prevent that in the future, or widen the shoulders. But I think that the town has a problem coming there.
I believe the highway is placing the signs on both sides of the causeway,
They're up.
no shoulders, caution, no shoulders. Okay.
And just one other quick comment as a result of our tour today. For those of you in the audience who don't know, we took a brief tour of the salt shed out there. And I think that, and I asked Bud, he said the roof is gonna be replaced this summer sometime. And I find it hard to believe the job wasn't bid out, and I'd like to make sure it was bid out.
I don't know that it wasn't for sure. I have to go look back.
So I think it would be in the town's best interest to bid the work out. And the last thing I'd like to chat about very briefly was I asked Bud about the hardness of the stone out there in the town pit. And the reason the county doesn't buy the stone from the town is that it doesn't meet the state standards for hardness, but as you go deeper, it gets harder, typically. And I know that it would probably benefit the town, it's not an expensive test, to take a hardness test on the stone, and then perhaps you could gain a buyer for our product there.
Okay, are we talking state highways?
Doesn't really matter, I mean, the state sets what they feel is a good hardness for stone. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact number of the hardness, but on the previous test that the county had made on the stone, it didn't make it, so they didn't buy it from you. But as you go deeper, it gets typically harder,
Okay,
so, you know.
I don't want to have a discussion, but I don't know why we would want to sell stone to the county.
Because it saves the county some money instead of having to truck it up here.
oh. Okay, all right,
And we pay, what, 17% of the county budget?
yes,
What was that?
we pay a substantial portion of the county budget.
14% or better?
Yep. Okay, any other comments from the board? If not, then we'll go on to number 17, which is Mr. Moneypenny, Mr. Flintner.
Good evening.
Great.
My name's Greg Stillman. I'm a board member of the Door County Visitor Bureau Board of Directors. And this is Ron Flitner, also a board member. We both represent businesses that are located in Liberty Grove. I've been the managing agent at the Inn at Little Sister Hill since 2001. And Ron's been involved in the Tannenbaum shop for a number of years.
Since 2004.
Since 2004. We do have a packet of information that we sent out earlier, and I'm not sure if that's available on the TV. Well, I think you have the handout. We can go through that. Sounds good. We thought, and this has been going on for a number of years, and But we thought it would be a good idea just to kind of go through some information for the tourism and some of the benefits that it provides to the county and specifically to Liberty Grove, especially with room tax that's been in effect for several years. And then just kind of give you an overall of the Visitor Bureau and what we do there, in a very brief summary. And I think she's got it right there.
All right.
There it is. Thank you. Mission statement of the Door County Visitor Bureau is the official tourism marketing organization for Door County, whose mission is to foster long-term economic growth and stability in concordance with sustainable tourism practices. The role of the Door County Visitor Bureau and local business or community associations. It is the role of the Visitor Bureau to market Door County outside of its borders and drawing overnight and day visitors to the area. It's also the role of the Door County Visitor Bureau to market all of the county as a whole. It is the role of the local community or business associations to market their community to the visitors via co-op marketing or independently to stay in their community and visit once they have arrived. And we thought it would also be nice to kind of show the makeup of the Visitor Bureau. There is a board of directors of 24 that's made up of representatives that are located throughout the county and also in a number of different business disciplines. And I think there was a sheet that was distributed to everyone with contact information. There's 13 full-time staff members at the Visitor Bureau, 3 in administration, 4 in marketing, communications, and PR, 2 in membership, and then 4 in the Welcome Center. That's it. It's a trim staff, but a very talented staff that we have, and we do have Jack Moneypenny with us, the executive of the Visitor Bureau here today too. Budget for the Visitor Bureau is at $3.25 million. And the breakdown of that is membership comes in at $744,000, and that's made up of membership dues through revenues selling ads in the visitor guide, and then the winter guide ad sales. And then the rest is made up that it markets Door County, and that's derived from room tax revenue, co-op advertising, and then partnerships that are out there. We've got a 5-year facts and figures for you to look at, that you can see the growth of that tourism's had here since 2009. We've got the 2013 numbers, and a lot of you may have seen this. There was a piece that was distributed through the county, throughout the county as an insert in conjunction with National Tourism Week, which was a couple weeks ago here. But room tax collections for 2013 were $3,644,000, or $3,644,000, which was a $618,000 increase over between 2009 and 13. The 30% that's given back to the municipalities last year was $1,093,204. Or $185,597 increase in the last 5 years. Town of Liberty Grove, the 30% that goes to the Liberty Grove specifically of that $1,093,000 was $72,136 in 2013, or over the course of the last 5 years, $11,194 increase. Occupancy averages in the last 5 years, you can see last year being at 40.48%, or almost a 4% increase in the last 5 years. And then average daily rate, you can see that ended last year at $137 average daily rate per night, with a $13 increase back from 2009. Total room revenues, 2013, $66,254,781, or over an $11 million increase. And then the county 0.5% room tax accounted for over $3 million last year, and an increase of $250,000 in the last 5 years. Visitor spending in Door County, You can see that's gone up, and we do have numbers in 2013, which came in at 299 million over that in 2013. So you can see the growth that we've seen in the last 5 years, which is atypical in the last 5 years from a tourism perspective in other parts of the state. Room tax collections, you can see that at the chart on that, with last year coming in at close to $4 million, $3.664 million. State and local taxes generated in 2013 was actually, and that's not on the chart, but I have that information, it's 32.9 million compared to the 31.8 in 2012, so obviously is a big revenue generator for a lot of different areas from that standpoint. The Strategic Community Partnership, which has been around for several years now, takes a percentage and then gives it back to each municipality. Liberty Grove, as a percent of the contribution in 2012 was 6.5%, or 16,786 was paid to Liberty Grove as a share in that Strategic Community Partnership. And that's actually 9th overall for the share. Total funds paid to the top of the thumb of the Door County North in the last 5 years was $73,120 out of that Strategic Community Partnership Fund. Key initiatives from the Visitor Bureau this year. We've got the Cherry campaign going on, which includes a microsite and then regional PR campaign. If you haven't had a chance to see that, it's really well done. Expanded a television buy into Madison, Milwaukee, Northern Illinois, Chicago, and the Fox City. And then there were also wind down and power up stations, which in 2 malls, Mayfair Mall in Milwaukee and Hilldale Mall in Madison, that kind of gave a real nice highlight of things to do in Door County as people recharge their cell phones or just recharge themselves. And I think that was March and April, those were located.
March, April, May, June, it ends June 30th.
Yeah. And one that's not on here that just was unveiled earlier today was the charging station for the electric car, which Jack just mentioned tonight. 3 people stopped on the way up for Memorial Day already to charge their cars, which is great. But we see that as potential to gain national recognition as
That was the first.
first in the nation to do that as
Door
a
County was the first.
destination marketing organization.
Give away gas would be the real first.
Pardon me?
Give away free gas would be the real first.
Free power to get here, right? Once you're here. So we know you've got a lengthy agenda, but we certainly appreciate you taking the time to go through this with us. And I entertain any questions or any comments that you might have.
Any question anybody has?
Yeah, I just thank you very much.
We appreciate your partnership, and I don't know, Jack, is there anything you want to add at all?
The main reason for us going out around the communities and doing these presentations is we want you to understand we want to come and bring you the good news and not only show up at your door when we want something from you. So that is not our intent. Tonight it's all about us just showing you this is what we've been working on. We think we've invested those dollars well over the last 5 years, the tourism dollars, and they're coming home to roost now with what's coming back from them.
This might not be the right forum, but over the last several years, I've heard from the board, John, Nancy, Frank, expressing a vision for what we might be able to do to promote Liberty Grove. And we're not, and I've heard Nancy say this, for example, we're not Sister Bay, we're not Fish Creek. You know, and what we have, we've sort of, in a very general way, identified as artisans, heritage, and ecotourism. I mean, the real value that we have as a community is our geography and our natural beauty. The escarpment is part of that. The lake shore is another part of that. Is there someone on the staff, for example, looking at this, that would be able to consult with us in terms of how we sharpen that vision into something more of a plan for Liberty Grove, or is it not something that's in your jurisdiction?
We are more than happy to take any time we have to sit down with someone and work through those issues. And by issues, I'm not saying they're bad things, but more than happy to sit and listen, kind of explain what we do, why we do it, and how Liberty Grove can fold into those efforts. And, you know, we like to believe we are waiting to work with Door County North. I think that Darcy, correct? Darcy has been wonderful so far to work with. She's very responsive. And she sits down once a month with all the other community folks with our marketing department and just talks about Door County as a destination. So how can we take that big vision and work your energies towards that to make sure you're getting your fair share of the puzzle? And that's a great question. We're more than happy to sit down and walk through and talk about that with you. You know, for us to say we'll only market you, that will never happen, but we certainly are willing to sit down and say, this is how we do it. Now let us help you try to figure out how you can tag onto that and build a stronger Liberty Grove.
I think having the new, or the Door County North and Darcy in that lead position is certainly a huge step in the right direction. And I know the state just awarded a grant, a joint effort marketing grant to something coming up in June, which is there's other opportunities available through the state to help with that type of thing specifically as well. But I think that's gonna be the catalyst for a lot of other things similar to what you were talking about to help with that vision.
And I don't think there's been enough of a dialogue between, for example, Door County North and the town to be able to suggest, to see where the town is coming from in terms of what we think has an opportunity to develop business to make this a true destination, especially for ecotourism, on the one hand, and how that might dovetail with what Door North is thinking of, not to mention the Visitors Bureau on the other hand.
Susan, you
Yep. Absolutely.
can go right from there, I guess.
Right from here? Okay. Well, as your largest business in Liberty Grove, Raleigh's Bay Resort has been very, very excited about DCDD and the new direction it had taken over the last several years. And we work with them very closely on everything they do. We would be nothing without them. We work with Darcy, of course, with DCN. And what we highly recommend is that, I noticed that the IT committee was saying they would like to do some kind of a website to have all the businesses on it and all that. Well, we would say that DCN is doing that job. We do not need the town of Liberty Grove to get involved with the business that way because we have DCN doing it. So we don't need to spend taxpayer money on doing yet another business site that lists everybody and tries to figure out what to do. And if you'd like to know what the business owners in Liberty Grove think, we do suggest you talk to the business owners and not just, think outside the box and like go to further away. We would love to talk to you about what we think the Door County, about Liberty Grove and what they're about. So I think that's important. I also corrected Darcy on something she'd been told by somebody on the board here, that only 20% of the tourists come to Liberty Grove and 80% don't. And actually, I talked to Phil Burns about that, and that was exactly the opposite. 80% come through here and 20% don't. So you were incorrect about that. So don't think that nobody comes here because when people are coming up the peninsula, they want to get to the end of it. So they do come here. We are a destination. Make no mistake about it.
Okay, I believe that was all. Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thanks for making the adjustment to the
Oh, not a
agenda
problem.
as well.
And I would like to point out that Ned Netterson is on our board also.
Yes.
He didn't stand up and wave his arms.
Target on my back?
Thank you, Ned. I know, you're here for a different reason, but Ned is on our board also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to clear up a previous comment, we did bid out the salt shed roof.
Good. Okay, then going on to consider the advisory motion from the annual meeting regarding town committee members. We'll need a motion from the board, either to address this or not.
Yeah, I'd like to chat about it, so I'll make a motion, we adopt, or open up number 8 for,
Is there a second to that motion?
guys, yeah.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion is carried. I believe we have some people that wanted to speak on this.
Susie was on that.
This time you get to stand at the podium.
I just wanted to comment that I know you've all read John Lowry's letter, or, I'm sorry, Carl Zapfi's letter, and I did read it also, and I think it's very even-handed, frankly, and I think that he makes great sense in that letter, and I just approve of what he said, and I totally agree with it. And although the audience doesn't know about that letter, I guess, I'm not sure if you're going to be reading that out loud.
Okay. Anybody else?
Jim?
Jim?
There seems to be some confusion about the value placed on town employees, although that has been made repeatedly clear. But to make it even more clear, I will read a short part of the preamble to the motion in question. No one would disagree that the employees of the town of Liberty Grove are indispensable, industrious, responsible, and greatly appreciated by the board and the residents of the town. The knowledge and experience they collectively possess are invaluable and contribute to the smooth operation of town business and maintenance. Their input, when solicited by committees or the town board, should be utilized when it is necessary to gather information. This motion is not about past allegations. It's not about illegal activities or malfeasance. It's about, as has been said over and over again, the perception of potential conflict of interest, and only that. You have Carl Zapfi's letter. He's made it quite clear that what the issue is, and you've heard from the citizens for 3 years in a row who have voted in favor of Carl's motion. It's overdue. It's time to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just for everybody's edification on this, there has been a question raised as to whether town employees should serve on committees. More specifically, I believe it was directed toward the Highway Committee. The two previous boards have not seen that to be a problem. We have conferred with legal counsel on that, and also the Wisconsin Towns Association on that issue, and they are in concurrence on that, it is not a problem unless obviously somebody votes in the case of, that would benefit them financially. So that's just to clarify this. Back to the board. Comments, questions?
I'd like to comment if I could, John, please.
Go ahead.
You know, I understand where both sides of this issue are coming from. But, you know, I served on the Door County Highway Department Committee for 6 years. I served on a whole bunch of committees there. And never at one time was an employee of the county offered a vote on any committee. And I just, it doesn't, you know, the letter's pretty eloquent in allowing any kind of input from the town employees. I mean, that's not what they're trying to do. It's just, it would seem from common sense that the people who vote on that committee should not be, you know, involved financially from the other end of the, you know, from their work. I just think it just makes a lot of sense to have the people there to add all the input they need, but when the votes are taken, in other words, the committee makeup should be non-employees, and I feel fairly strongly on that.
Anybody else have a comment? I'll make a couple comments here. One is that the final decision on any committee motions comes to this board. And I'll make another comment. We have another town employee that serves on a committee, and never once has that been brought up. And that happens to be our treasurer, who's on the finance committee. So I guess this basically focuses on roads, and I would raise a question, I guess, in my own mind, as to why are we focusing on the roads and leaving the other situation? Never a comment on that. I am not in agreement with not allowing the members to be on the committees. I think they have a vast amount of experience combined. They know an awful lot about the town that probably all the board members collectively don't, in reference to the roads, in reference to how you maintain the roads. And to this point, I'm not convinced that this is a problem.
No one's gonna argue with you, John.
I concur with what John says. We checked with our attorney, we also checked with Lee Teroni from the Wisconsin Towns Association, and if either of them had expressed even the slightest, ooh, I don't think so, or anything like that, but no, there was no issue of conflict of interest in their legal opinion unless someone directly or someone directly in their family benefited from a decision in which they took part. That has not happened. I also take issue with some of the comments in Mr. Zappi's letter. He made a direct quote from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities about conflict of interest. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities is a city and village organization. Our direction comes from WTA, the Wisconsin Towns Association. Those are the attorneys that we sought advice from 2 years in a row on this issue. I am not uncomfortable with the committee structures that we have now. I would be lost in finance without Janet. And to eliminate them because somebody perceives there could be wrongdoing, when there has been no wrongdoing, I think is wrong. And if there is wrongdoing, then like John says, by all means, bring it to the board and we will investigate it. But until that happens, I think we should keep good people where they are.
And I understand the subtleties, of the appearance of impropriety, I understand that very well. At the same time, though, I realize that, being in a small community like this sort of taps every resource we have. And it seems, from my experience on the Parks and Property Committee, for example, in the past year or so, I found that from a practical point of view, Jay had been on the committee. John, this year, in the spirit of what we're talking about now, sort of eliminated Jay from participation on the committee. But I found that all of us, even in the last month or so, not having him present when the questions came up that needed to have the expertise of someone like Jay, made it harder for the committee, I think, to just sort of get the information it needed right then on the spot. And of course, I'm sure if we tracked him down, he's very busy, tracked him down and so forth, and took him off his routine, other than for a committee meeting, we can get the information at the same time. I also, and correct me if I'm wrong though, if we're focusing on the highway committee, from what I had understood, and if it's not the case, correct me, that no matter what the vote was on the highway committee, every issue of the highway committee would be brought to the board. And if that's the case, it seems then that there's really, from a practical point of view, and using Janet again as the example on the finance committee, if she weren't right there and then present, from a practical point of view, we'd be just delaying decisions more and more as well.
Okay. Hugh?
Lou, I don't think I'm sorry, Frank.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead. No one's asking for their input to be eliminated. No one's asking for Jay not to be at the meetings. No one's asking for Janet not to be at the meetings. It's just that when it comes to the vote on the committee, that the committee, the makeup of the committee should be without the presence of a person who's directly employed by the town in those particular areas. And so it's a very subtle thing, but it would eliminate the the issue of bringing it up every annual meeting. It's not a big deal. The input would still be there, the expertise would still be there. It's just who votes. That's what we're talking about.
Frank?
I've been outspoken on this for several years in that I feel as though there should be no appearance of conflict. I also agree with Lou and Nancy and John that it's very important to have town employees at committee meetings. I think the rub comes sometimes when we get to the point of issuing requests for bids or making purchases. And I think maybe this whole thing needs a little bit further study, because I feel as though there's a possibility that when somebody votes as a committee member and is a town employee, that there is obviously no purpose to voting for a particular thing of a personal purpose, any gain. And I've been watching this very, very carefully, but I think it's an issue that we all have to watch and keep open, keep our minds open to it and see. And I think if we're open in our bid process and we go about it in a forthright, open manner, that's all we need to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think Frank hit the nail on the head. He says we don't want appearance of conflict, and that's, we're not asking for a change of input, just no appearance of conflict possible.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion. The motion from the town, annual town meeting is advisory in nature. I'll make a motion that we do not take up, or do not, I want to make it exactly clear, that we find no conflict of interest in having town employees on committees, and that we continue to allow that to happen until there's a definite case shown that there is a conflict. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion. Want to read the motion? Disjointed as it is.
The motion was that the board finds no conflict of interest in employees serving on town committees, and that practice continue until there is a case of conflict shown.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm on record as being opposed.
All right, motion carries. Going on to the Highway Committee appointments. I will make a motion to appoint to the Highway Committee Mr. Farber, Mr. Walker, Mr. Combs, Ms. Shumway, Mr. Olson, Mr. Barkey, and Mr. Hockers.
John, I
Is
signed
there,
up to speak on
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
that. I signed up to speak on
Yes, okay.
before that.
Could you read that list slowly, please?
Farber, Walker, Combs, Shumway, Olson, Barkey, Hockers. Oh,
Do we have a second?
second there.
From Nancy.
Okay, before we get into our discussion, Susan, you wanted to make a comment on that?
Yeah.
And we need also to discuss the Safney letter as part of this. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, first of all, now that you've showed your hand and who you're going to put on the committee, one of the comments that Lou had was how hard it is to get people on the committees because we're a small community and we don't have enough people. You have your most experienced person right here, and you're going to not put him on that committee. Nobody here is going to understand that because it's clearly seems like something prejudicial that you're not putting Hugh on that committee. He's not on very many committees. Several of you are on a lot of committees. What reason do you possibly have to not put on someone who's as experienced as Hugh is on the highway committee and take off someone else who basically sells us gravel for $10,000 and is then a committee member? I mean, if that isn't a conflict, I don't know what is.
Was there somebody else?
Just number 9, Jim.
Jim?
I'll pass.
Okay. Leonard?
That's all.
Okay, back to the board. I had asked at the last meeting of Carl Zaffney to, if he had specific case of a conflict of interest, if he knew of it, if he'd kindly bring it to the board so that we could address it and take action on it. You all have a copy of the letter that you sent to me, and it is a rather long letter. I've read it through several times. I cannot find an incident that he mentions of a conflict of interest. Again, it's back to the notion that there could be. But I'm not finding in the letter that he has basically answered my request for a specific conflict of interest. Discussion on the appointments, unless somebody else has a comment on Carl's letter.
I'll comment, if you don't mind, then.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, John, I served 6 years on the Door County Highway Department, Highway Committee. That's an elected position from the county board. I've done everything from rebuilding the minor roads to rebuilding the major roads, buying of AC oil for the asphalt plant. I know how asphalt plants work. I know it's fueled. I know how it's redone. I know a lot of stuff about highway. And I think quite, John, it's sort of goofy not to allow me to have that input onto the committee on an ongoing basis. I mean, I don't see how it could possibly harm you. And, you know, somebody like, I just picking Ms. Shumway, what experience has she actually had on something like that?
Well, I'm not going to answer the question as to anybody's experience as to why they're on a particular committee. You do have the final say.
Yeah.
You are not, excuse me, Hugh, you are sitting here as a member of 5 people on this board, the final decision. So all your knowledge, all your experience will come into play here at this point.
Well,
Okay, anybody else, comment, question? All right, we have a motion and a second on those committee appointments. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'd like to be on record as being opposed.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, going on. Highway Committee recommendations. You have a number of roads that have been recommended. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead here. Yep. 10A, designate all or parts of Green, Plateau, Town Line, North Bay, and Robin Lane as heritage roads. And you all have the nomination forms, and they've been filled out. And I believe Mr. Walker was the one that nominated these. Do you have a comment you want to make on these, Mike?
Nothing unless the board has questions.
Okay. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the board on these?
10. Jim.
I would like to remind the board that Garrett Bay Road has been nominated as a heritage road, and I'm wondering why it is not appearing before the town board for consideration.
I don't think it's been brought up.
I don't think it's been brought to, from the committee to the board, to my knowledge.
Didn't they put it on hold because it was going to be worked on?
I think so. Mike, did it come to the, forwarded? To the board?
To the highway committee?
From the highway committee to the board, the nomination.
For Garrett Bay.
Garrett Bay,
No.
no. That's the answer. Apparently it hasn't arrived here that I'm aware of.
what does it take for it to arrive to the board?
Comes out of the highway.
But the highway committee is just a rubber stamp, and the town board has final decision-making powers.
That's correct, but they're gonna pass it on to us. Go ahead.
Well, I think early on, the board came to a decision that if a road was having work done on it, that, like the rustic roads program, we would defer the heritage road status until that work was finished.
That decision,
It's not true in the case of, what is it, Cedar Shore, because that's right downtown, and there is a lot of work and sewer and drainage stuff that's going on, and most of the impetus for Heritage Road status was historical and water view. But in a case like Garrett Bay, that's a lot more, Garrett Bay Road, it's a lot more like Isleview Road with tree canopy, clear zones, and the paving has yet to be done on that road, even though the rest of the things have been figured out, the paving will be done. And I think once that paving is finished, then it will come forward. That's my understanding.
it was my understanding that that decision of the board had been reversed by a vote of the board, and that it is no longer true that a road cannot be designated a heritage road
That's
because it
correct.
is slated for construction.
That's correct, but it was only in unusual circumstances like Cedar Shore Road. That's when that came about, and it does not apply to all roads, and I don't think Garrett Bay Road, we haven't taken it up as a board, but I don't think that would qualify in the same way that Cedar Shore Road does.
One of the issues on Garrett Bay Road is the issue of the utility poles. If the poles were to be moved back to the rear of the 6-foot clear zone, another, in my estimation, over 100 trees more would be lost on Garrett Bay Road. If designating Garrett Bay Road as a heritage road might change that, might keep the utility poles where they are and save, let's say, 100 trees, that could make a huge difference in the quality of the road and its ability to be and remain a heritage road. So these are issues that shouldn't be lost or overlooked. It's imminent, the decision of moving those utility poles.
I'm not sure how many poles are being moved, much less how many trees are affected by that.
I did talk to Public Service when I asked them about moving the poles, and they said there would be minimum, I think they mentioned a branch or two that would be coming down. I don't remember exactly, but I didn't hear anything about 100 trees coming down because they're moving the poles. That's in the works to be done yet this spring, as I understand from talking to them.
How many poles, do we know?
I don't remember the count. It's, I can't say.
Okay.
Wisconsin Public Service has clearance standards, which they don't enforce until they do work. Moving the poles means that they would do work and that they would expect to enforce their clearance standards, which is 10 feet on either side of a wire and 20 feet above it. You move the pole back 6 feet, and with it goes the wires, and with it goes the clearances, and with it goes the trees. If I'm wrong about 100 trees, I'm off by, let's say, 10%. Maybe it's only 90 trees. This is a serious consideration.
Where there was an issue with a pole and a tree that was in the way, when I was out there and looked at them, with Public Service, they said, we had eyed it up, and they said, well, in that case there, we would put an extension on the pole and keep the wire out away from the tree where there was a tree that they did not want to cut, or that we did not want to cut.
Run that by one more time, Bud. You move the tree back from the road, and what do? You put
An extension on the pole to
They're called alley arms.
Put the wire
And we
out.
have them throughout Liberty Grove in certain instances, but
To put the wire
Wisconsin
out-
Public
out.
Services,
over the road versus,
No, Jim knows it.
Wisconsin Public Service is not in favor of alley arms, unfortunately, because it puts a different kind of strain on the poles. Anyway,
Okay.
I wish that Garrett Bay Road, of all roads in Liberty Grove, which Mike deserves the Heritage Road status, that is it. That's the poster child of heritage roads in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
Do you have a comment? No. Please. And you've met with WPS.
I asked the applicant, saying that it was, there's a problem. Mr. Moronic's comment about 100 trees being raised is nonsense. That's not gonna happen. As well, whether this board realizes it or not, we were directed by the DOT, which will come up in a subsequent subject here on 10C, I believe it is that the DOT came back and said if we rebuild, or if we resurface that road, we've got to make the road 22 feet wide with 10 foot from the edge of pavement on each side, which would increase the current approved clear zone from 32 to 42 feet. And when you get rumors like 100 trees being cut, that's nonsense. And I've said it at our meeting, and I'll say it here publicly tonight. Our committee is not going to recommend any such course of action. We fought enough about this 32-foot clear zone. From our committee is going to be it. And there was a 6-to-1 vote to confirm that to your board last year. Now, as far as the subject of 10A, has nothing to say about Garrett Bay Road. Mr. Moronic's out of order. You've got a motion for the heritage roads that I nominated. And I would like to point out that our committee approved that nomination 7-0, and there's 6 roads that this affects, which would raise, we have 7 heritage roads now, it would raise the total heritage roads to 13. So that's the motion in front of you, and I would hope that the board could give us a upvote on that.
Thank you.
You said
Duly
there's
noted.
7, I count 5 here.
There's six, let's see, what's missing?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I count 5 roads.
You got 5. We've got Green, Plateau, Town Line, North Bay, Robin Lane.
Oh, you've got the, no,
No, Wildwood.
Wildwood Road.
Wildwood
Yeah,
is, Wildwood is on here. Yeah,
okay,
But you can't vote in Wildwood, it's not on
Right.
the agenda.
right.
okay,
We'll put that on the next one.
fine.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's
We
hiding-
have-
It's hiding down there.
Right. We have a motion. Do you want to read the motion, please, just for clarification?
I don't think we have a motion.
We don't have a motion.
I don't see any on my notes.
Then I will make a motion to approve the Highway Committee's nomination, or Mr. Walker's nomination of Town Line, North Bay, Robin Lane, Green Road, and Plateau Road, as specified in the nomination forms. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Forkert. Discussion.
Clarify for me, please, in 1 minute if you can. Becoming a heritage road does, what does it do?
Gets a little bit more attention, special attention. If you've read through the Heritage Road policy, it pretty well spells it out.
I mean, I live on North Bay Road, how would that affect North Bay Road?
You probably wouldn't notice anything different. I mean, there's not gonna be any drastic change in that road. It's just recognizing that that road has characteristics that make it special, I guess, in the sense. I think early on in the process of all this, the administrator said he felt all roads in the town should be labeled heritage roads.
Well, that's what I was gonna, the
Yeah.
point I was gonna kinda get to.
But it does kind of specify, you know, certain roads I think the crew will take probably a little bit gentler care of, if you will. And there was a discussion, an ongoing discussion as to pointing those roads out to the public. And this is a point that I would like to see, at least from the standpoint of the Heritage Road program, is it's been focused a lot on the trees and the natural, flora and fauna. I think there's a lot more to a heritage road, and that is, its actual heritage and importance in the town, and that's been pointed out on a number of these roads. So we've got one right out here, Old Stage Road. It is the old stagecoach road.
Yeah, and it went straight at Daramo Bend and went on the log road to
Right.
Bailey's Harbor right there.
So it gets a little more recognition to those roads.
So I think Garrett Bay certainly is a wonderful road.
I don't think anybody disagrees.
Yeah. So we could put Garrett Bay on as a heritage road in the near future?
If somebody nominates it, and it comes to the highway committee and it tosses to us, fine.
It has been nominated.
It has been nominated, it hasn't come to the board,
How does it get to the board?
highway committee. Okay. We have a motion, and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of those 5 roads indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Bids, Garrett Bay paving.
I'm not signed up for this one, but if somebody else does and they've got 30 seconds they can give to me, could I ask you a question on that? It's not about the bid, it's about the road.
Board, is that all right with the board? Okay, go ahead.
My question is, I know that there's an issue with the logging, the possible logging of, or Bluff Park, because I did see that meeting, and I didn't know if that's resolved, and if you're gonna go ahead and bid before it happens, or if you, or how that's gonna affect things.
The county has not made a decision. I think basically the town
I have
is,
some-
we're gonna go ahead.
Okay, that's the whole thing,
Yeah.
you know, it didn't matter to me if they,
Yeah.
how that went, but it was a matter of if it would,
Right.
that road, if they did it.
The county will be taking that up on June 18th at their committee meeting. It'll be at the airport, and they will have representatives from the DNR also explaining the differences between eradication and management, which has been the change in prioritization of the tree cutting.
I was mainly just worried about the impact on the roads, maybe lighter loads on the trucks, who knows?
Yeah.
At the highway committee, Pat Hocker's made the comment if they do the harvesting, if they're gonna do it, and we don't know that, they will do it in the winter, and that probably will have minimal, if any, impact on the roads, considering the equipment that they use. He said as long as it's frozen. And Pat's got a lot of experience with the roads, so.
Okay, thank you, I had it down, but I forgot to put it down.
That's right, that's right. Okay, bids. But
Okay, the highway committee recommended getting a bid on Garrett Bay Road from Maplewood down to North Badger. We put a deadline of 3 o'clock today for the bids / quotes, and one bid came in at 2:30 today. It is accompanied by a certificate of a corporate resolution, the meeting of the board of directors, signed by the secretary, certificate of insurance. And it's from Northeast Asphalt, 1.15 miles, 20 feet wide, 3 inches, $154,900. My suggestion is to hold off on awarding the bid, which will be good for usually 30 days. I don't see it on here right off the bat. To let the highway committee look over this and for us to look at this in relation to our budget. I believe this is a bit more than we had put in the budget last fall,
What was that, 118,
110, I believe.
110?
110.5, I think, is the paving bid for that section of road. The other 8,000 you're mentioning is from miscellaneous patching added on to the total amount. We could accept the bid and then do something pending approval or review by the highway committee. And
I think your first suggestion's better.
I'll make a motion that we refer this to Highway Committee for their input, and, well, leave it at that. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
before I forget it, I'd like to ask the board, I sent out the packet. Do those numbers I put on the stuff help at all? When you send the Zoom out, I put a agenda item on the bid, or on the forms up in the corner, corresponding to the number on the agenda. Does that do any good to help relate to the agenda?
Yeah, sure.
I was wondering what those were.
That's what they are.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll do it, I'll keep doing it then.
So,
Okay,
can I ask the guys a question here, just real quick? How long ago did you ask for bids on that?
How long ago?
Yeah, when did you ask for the bids?
Within the last 2 weeks.
So that's the question. I mean, people have pretty much committed to their work by this point in time. It's sort of like asking the contractor to take on, and so maybe Northeast Asphalt was the only person who could possibly do it at that point. I know the county couldn't do it because they were booked.
right.
And so one bid is kind of,
Well,
I don't think in our best interest.
There was a delay, Hugh, because of the situation that Paul brought up in reference to the tree
No, I understand
cutting
that, yeah.
in the county park. I think it's important that, we find out what it's gonna cost us to do that road, and we may not be able to do it this year. If
Hmm.
it's over the budget, we simply may not be able to do it, so. but- Okay, C, consider transfer of trip funds from Garrett Bay Road to an alternate project. That's kind of on hold.
This is a recommendation from the Highway Committee. In the trip application with the traffic count on that road, the DOT specs call for a 22-foot surface with 3-foot shoulders. If we went ahead with 22 feet and the 3-foot shoulders, as Mike mentioned earlier, we'd have, then we might get into Jim's 100-tree tally. But the Highway Committee did not want to do that, and therefore what the recommendation is to go ahead and pull the trip funds off of that road and apply it to another road. You can do that, a one-time transfer. The Highway Committee is looking at several roads with low ratings to substitute and to transfer that trip money to. In the meantime, we can go ahead and pave Garrett Bay to our current desires of 20 feet with 2 or 3 foot shoulders. And at the next Highway Committee meeting, the members are coming back with recommendations from that list of roads that we had to look at to transfer the trip money to.
Do you have to get specific on each time for each road for transfer, or can you just make a general transfer?
Well, we could, I think we could generally say we will not use trip funds for Garrett Bay Road. And we have a two-year window, right, to use those funds?
This year and next year.
Yeah.
But you have to ask the state for specific roads once you use.
There's a
expend the
form to
funds.
fill out to which road you're gonna transfer the trip money to.
And the state has to approve that at that point, right?
Well, I sent it to Kaloji and he takes over from there.
Oh,
Okay, I'll make a motion to transfer the trip funds from Garrett Bay Road to an alternate project that the Highway Committee will decide on, and part of that, second part of that motion is that we will not pave Garrett Bay Road to 22 feet as required for the TRIP funds.
Can you change that? Highway Committee will recommend.
We'll recommend.
Consider, recommend.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Plan Commission recommendation. We'll need a motion to place it before the board.
So moved.
No, no, let's make a formal motion.
I would like to make a motion to support the variance for Craig and Natalie Netterson at 12775 Door Bluff Road.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Okay, discussion. Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to report on the unanimous decision of the Plan Commission. The Nettersons' request, we felt, met all three criteria. And we were impressed with the modest design, the consideration for the escarpment, the concept of preserving the history of the structure. And we felt that any time someone attempts or does a development or redevelopment project that takes all of those sensitive issues into consideration, that they're going in the right direction. And as a result, we were very supportive and wish the Nettersons great luck with their project.
Okay, anybody else have a comment, question? Are you going to keep the name Camp Happy? Good. Remind me to tell you a story about the knives and Swedish pancakes. Okay, any other questions from the board? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Going on, Parks and Properties consider installing restroom sign at the Ellison Bay Community Center.
That was not a formal motion. It wasn't on the agenda. It was in the general public input type discussion that in relation to restrooms in Ellison Bay and
Oh,
that whole,
okay.
whole scenario. The comment came up, I think it was from Christine, that people really don't know there's restrooms at the women's club, and the suggestion or thought was maybe the board would support putting a sign on the sign out by the road there that said restrooms with an arrow or something to fit into that sign. So I looked at it the other day, and there's a bunch of things on there now, and if you put it on the bottom, if things get planted in the bottom, they're gonna grow up and cover that part.
Throw up or cover up?
So we might have to modify or make an adjustment and something to put, so if the board desires to get some direction for people that they know there's a restroom down there.
Well, I'll make a motion that we install a restroom sign at the Ellison Bay Community Center sign. Location to be determined.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion.
Says it, okay.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I like to,
Motion is carried.
like to vote against, but it's just kind of like, it seems kind of goofy to have to put a sign up there, frankly.
Well, if you have not been privy to all the comments about restrooms availability
No
in
pun
Ellison Bay. Sorry about that.
They are using their restrooms.
What's wrong with the tree, Frank?
Okay,
Women have a hard time.
going on. Number 13. Bud and I were went with the county sanitarian and visited the Olson property and also the Burns property on NP. The result of that is that the county has not sent a letter to the Olson, Kathy. They did send a letter to Mr. Burns. We have, I believe you have a copy of the letter from Corporation Counsel for the county. He'd like to sit down and discuss the options available legally and fiscally to the town. Now, we do have a motion previously that stated that we would give the Kathy, or the Olsons till, I believe you said the 10th?
May 7th.
May 7th, to do a substantial cleanup.
That's what the county gave them
That's what
last
the
year,
county gave them.
right.
And the county, at this point in time, is punting, I think, from what we determined.
Absolutely.
So we have a decision to make as to whether we want to enforce our ordinance or wait.
Could we, have you actually asked somebody at the county level, who would, what department would you go to on that?
Tycliffe.
Sanitary.
For the Olsons also? Are we Burns or Olsons now?
Well, it was both,
Olson, Burns has been notified.
Right.
but Olson has a history from 2004 of letters back and forth from John Tycliffe's
First time I was on
office.
this town board,
Right.
it was Olson.
Yeah.
But now the letter from Corporation Counsel is saying there is no actionable nuisance there, and basically, it puts us in a very difficult position, with the county saying there's no problem. I guess my question to Corp Counsel would be, what if that was next door to you? But I can't say that because it's not. We do have our own ordinance, and I'm wondering if we shouldn't ask our attorney if we can start levying fines. They are already 2 years behind in delinquent property taxes, and I'm sorry, but it is a nuisance. You drive into town and that is right there in your face, and it's unkempt, it's dirty, it's run down, there's junk laying around all over the place and unregistered vehicles. We've had numerous complaints from people who live downtown, have their businesses downtown. This has gone on long enough. I realize that Kathy's response was, it's been a brutal winter, but as of August, when Bob Tidball led the charge of the VFW to help clean it up, nothing was done between August and the brutal winter. And I just see this going on and on and on, and I would like to find out from our attorney, can we start levying fines? Because if we do, that goes right on their tax bill and comes right off the top before any taxes, delinquent or not, are paid.
And I'm referring back to the annual meeting when Mr. Murray had mentioned the condition of the Valet Motel. And I sympathize with the view that that is a very unsightly spot. And like Nancy said, to have that as the first thing you see virtually when you come into Ellison Bay is really not a very good first impression. But to Nancy's comment about the Corporation Council's suggestion that there is no problem with the way that property looks, I think it's incumbent on the businesses in particular, not to mention concerned citizens, not to mention the board, to say that we politely and respectfully disagree with the opinion that that valet motel doesn't show a problem, doesn't exhibit a problem. Because I think, you know, like the definition of pornography, it's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And in that case, that is an eyesore that I don't think anybody would disagree with. And I think it's important that the Corporation Council and the county get to understand that that's not an acceptable answer, that it's not a problem, so far as they're concerned.
We also have an option of, what is that called, Bud? To seek to go on, be able to go on the property, it's a legal matter that we'd have to start legal action in the courts, and of course, they would fight that.
We have to get a order to let our building inspectors
To go in,
inspect the building and then make their determination. And she said she would fight that tooth and nail.
What about levying fines per our own ordinance?
Well, if we do, we're gonna
We
have to
never
go
get
it
the money.
alone, because the county isn't gonna do anything.
And would they legally fight that with a cease and desist?
who, the county? No.
No, no,
Kathy?
Kathy.
I don't know how she would, or what she would do. We'd have to start an action to find out for sure.
Starting an action, would that be what levying fines is?
Well, it's in violation of our ordinance.
It is in violation of our ordinance, and there is a long paper trail history of it being a problem, admittedly, through the county sanitation's office. This curveball that we've just been thrown by Corporation Council makes us feel so powerless about this. I don't know, would Jack Bruce, do you think, shed any light on
Sure,
on
yeah,
what
yeah.
we could do?
He did, when we originally talked about getting the injunction, and then we kind of dropped it at that point because the decision here was to coordinate with the county.
Yeah.
And if they're May 7th or whatever of this year, we were gonna do the same thing, set as a date. But now they're running the other way.
Yeah, fast.
So has anybody thought about going to the people and say, the town would just come in and clean up the front yard for you?
Well,
The
there were
VFW
volunteers.
did, tried.
I know, I understand that, but I mean, just come with some heavy equipment, take all those boats and cars, load them on a big thing, take them to junkyard.
Kathy's gonna sell that boat for big dollars.
Yeah, well, that was suggested, but she wants to be there to monitor everything that goes out of the place. And then she doesn't get up, now she's coming up the 23rd apparently, according to the email. So,
Well, I mean, it seems to me that would be the get the immediate reaction you want, cleaning up the yard, and probably be, from a cost standpoint, the least expensive for the town. Anytime you get into law actions with something like this, it just drags on and on and on. And from experience I've had in issues like this, with enforcement of like sanitation rules down in the southern door for the dairy business and stuff like this, you never hit a good end. It just always turns out to be a pretty rotten thing. No one wins in these kind of things.
However, there was a time when the board did discuss that very suggestion, Hugh, and although it may seem like a viable alternative, what type of message does that give to people? I can let my property turn into an absolute junkyard and the town will come in and clean it up. And how fair is that or not to the people who do take pride in ownership of their property and keep it nice, that their tax dollars are going to clean up somebody else's mess?
But my understanding, though, I don't think Kathy would allow, the owners wouldn't allow the town to interfere with,
no.
if, the little I understand from what she said over, and the tone of her letter is very, very definite, keep out, don't even think about coming in.
Right, exactly.
Then perhaps as another issue we might consider doing is having the county pass an ordinance to say that unlicensed vehicles only can stay at a certain spot for so long. I know that other areas of the country have that to
I think that's
eliminate.
state law already.
Yeah, if you don't have if a vehicle doesn't have a license, that's a violation.
What could it,
Well, Frank?
You know, this is gonna drag on.
Yep.
And nothing's gonna happen.
Yep.
And I just wonder, is there some way the town could get or have the authority to put a fence with a gate across the front and down the sides so that it is no longer a nuisance, that it have to be an attractive fence? they would have to have access to their property. Does the town want to pay for a fence like that?
You wonder if Kathy would even consider that.
Again, maybe this is a question we could ask our legal counsel.
Could, I mean,
I guess-
frankly, the idea of a fence, I wouldn't support it. I'd love to have a nice, big, attractive fence around my property. If I start leaving junk lay around, is town gonna buy me one?
It's a
I guess I'm of the opinion, we have a violation of a town ordinance that's gone on for years. I think the time has come to enforce the ordinance. And with the realization that there are other properties in the town, the Burns property notwithstanding, there are other properties that if we start getting complaints, once we take this action, it's going to, it sets a precedent. But maybe that's a good precedent to set.
And there are two other Olson properties, one on
Right.
Garrett Bay Road
Right.
and another one over on the lakeside.
And
And I think we have to include those
Yes,
in this.
definitely.
Because there are complaints from the land trust on the Appleport lot.
And I
Garrett
agree with
Bay.
that in the sense that part of what legal counsel for the Olsons have suggested is that the Olson property on 42 is being unfairly singled out as the only piece of property that's ever been cited for, as being a nuisance. And I think, like Frank said, if we include other properties, well, Burns is included in that.
Yep.
My other question, though, is, does the sanitarian's letter to Mr. Burns, or the Burnses, have any force other than being a piece of paper? Because it seems like the sanitarian's letter to the Olsons didn't seem to have any effect at all, or am I misreading that?
I think you're right on.
Yeah.
And I think you probably hit the nail right on the head there, Lou, is you can fine people all they want, and they just kind of like, so what?
But this doesn't even threaten them with a fine or anything, it just,
No, it doesn't threaten them with anything. I
No,
just
but I
didn't
mean,
know
if
where-
if you start fining the people, they're just gonna let it pile up from their delinquent property taxes. And I guess maybe in 5 years, the property would go up for, delinquent tax sale.
That's half the time that we've been dealing with it.
The other option is to rescind our ordinance.
What good would that do?
If you don't want to enforce it, why have it on the books?
But they're 2 years delinquent now, or 3?
3.
Two on their property.
Two.
Yeah.
And that really shouldn't have any bearing on our decision.
Oh, sure it does, because they continue to have
Well,
delinquent property,
yeah,
then
it
the
adds
county's
to
gonna
it,
sell it.
I found myself, after seeing that they were 2 years delinquent on their property taxes today, feeling a little bit offended that Kathy's letter said she's asked for special surveillance and protection from the sheriff's department to make sure that none of their stuff is stolen or trespasses are on the property. Here they are not paying their taxes, yet they're sucking up resources. I don't know, that just seems wrong.
Would it be, then there's the question of not just enforcing the ordinance, but suggesting when it would start to kick in?
June 1.
Pardon?
June 1.
June 1st.
Well, I'll make a motion that we notify the Kathy Olson and Mr. Burns that commencing June 1st, the town of Liberty Grove will enforce its nuisance ordinance with the fines mounting daily. Is there a second?
For purposes of discussion, I'll second that.
Yeah, okay, good.
I would think, though, in terms of what argument the Olson's attorney will make is maybe just not enough time, maybe July 1st or August 1st.
Mm-hmm.
1st. It seems, I know this is kicking the can down the road, but it seems like the Olsons, if they want to enforce it, they should be able to enforce it. If they want to enforce it, they should be able to enforce it.
Well,
part of the Olsons' argument is that the winter's been so brutal, they haven't had time to really clean it up. And I've heard that now excuse given over and over again. The town was very compassionate about the fact that her parents had passed within a very short time of each other, and that they were grieving, and there was an extension. And I know it sounds like a lot, but at the same time, I think the town is bent over backwards. But I think another 30 days or so would take a little wind out of the sails of someone to say, I don't have enough time between now and June 1st, which is only next week, to clean up and otherwise be subject to the fines.
I would agree with that, but I would like to, if possible, see a date given, commencement by such and such a date, and finishing the cleanup by such and such a date. Because the history on this issue has shown us that there will be some effort done on a given weekend, and then nothing happens until the following spring. And then we go through this same fight, and then there's a weekend of a dumpster maybe or maybe not being there and things happening, and then nothing happens. And her letter seemed to indicate that she has talked to several auctioneers. I can only imagine why she's talked to several. I don't know if that would be something most auctioneers would want to take on, but it seems like she's planning garage sales. Well, John was doing that for many years, and I don't know that they were terribly successful. I would like to see a start and a finish date. If we're going to start getting tough with them, then let's give them some structure.
Has the town defined what's cleaning up is? My view of cleaning up may be different than Lou's idea of cleaning up, may be different than Nancy's idea of cleaning up.
That's true. I guess, perhaps we could work something out with John Teichler. He's very familiar with the situation, and if there was a consensus between the town board and John Teichler that it was sufficient, perhaps that would work.
Get the wording, for sure.
I think it's important to define what we expect them to do. We expect them to remove vehicles, remove boats, clean the premises so that there's no outside garbage or trash or loose
Storage.
loose storage, anything like that. And if we give them 60 days or 90 days, June, July, and August, if it's not done by September, we will move. It's gonna be an eyesore all summer. It's been an eyesore all summer for the last 20 summers.
What do the towns associations say when you contact them on this?
What did they say?
Yeah.
Basically, if you have an ordinance, enforce it.
Did they say the ordinance was okay to have?
We didn't run that past them. Oh, was it? Yes.
Yes, yeah. It's a valid ordinance, in my mind.
I would suggest, since we have a motion and a second, that the second withdraw the second.
I'll withdraw my second.
Is there a second to the motion? Seeing no second, the motion dies.
I would make a motion that the town enforce the nuisance ordinance that it is currently in effect, starting on July 1st, for the commencement of work to be done, to be completed by September 30th, to the satisfaction, mutual satisfaction of the sanitarian, the town board, as to what constitutes cleaned up.
I'll second that.
Do you think you need since,
All right.
think you need a beginning date, though? I mean, just give them an end date.
He
July
just did.
1st.
July 1st,
For the end or beginning?
Beginning.
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 That's right, so why do you need a beginning date?
That's when the fine starts to kick in.
Oh, I see, got
The
it.
fine will kick in then,
if it's not completed by.
Right. And if it's not open-ended, I agree with Nancy, even though the fine is accruing, uh,
Yeah, pretty much.
that still doesn't give them an idea of when it has to be done, which has been, this, it seems this open-endedness is what's been the problem in keeping it going that way.
So they get it done by, what, I'm sorry, the date of, we've said
September
completion,
30th.
well, the fine disappears, right?
We could, yeah.
If it's satisfactorily cleaned up to
Or
the.
September 1st, I think the date was.
30th.
September 30th, to the
30th.
satisfaction of the sanitarian and the town board.
So, let me clarify this. What you're saying is, beginning the 1st of July, the ordinance will be enforced with the end period of the 30th of September. If it is cleaned up to the satisfaction, the fines will be waived?
It would be at our discretion,
It would
would
be
it
at
not?
our
Okay, all right.
I think it has to be more clear than that. I think it has to be yes or no. If they got it done by September 30th, the fines are eliminated or waived.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. I think that's a fair way to do it.
Well, you can make an amendment to the
I will
motion.
amend my motion to suggest that the, upon mutual agreement of the sanitarian and town board by September 30th, were the property to be cleaned, that any
Accrued fine.
fines imposed would be waived.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment. Okay, so clarifying the amendment, what it does in effect is to change the original motion to read that if to the satisfaction of the town and the sanitarian, that the cleanup is completed by the 30th of September, the fines will be waived,
Accrued fines. will be
accrued fines.
Yeah.
Right. Any other discussion? All in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now, the original motion as amended. Have you got that down? Can you read it?
Can't you just vote?
No, we want to be clear on this one.
Well, the motion is that the town enforce this nuisance ordinance beginning on the date of July 1st, with the work to be done by September 30th to the mutual satisfaction of the board and the Door County Sanitarian. Amended to say that upon agreement of the sanitarian and the town board, if the cleanup is completed by September 30th, any accrued fines that are imposed would be
Wait. Right.
waived, yeah.
Any discussion?
I'd like to add a friendly motion amendment, or amendment to that. Upon the, I think you ought to consult the town attorney before you do that, send that letter out. Upon review. However you want to put it.
I would agree with that, too.
We'll do that.
Yeah, he'll
Yeah.
do it. Okay, all in favor of the amended motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Going on to number 14, consider use of reporting form for variances and conditional uses. This is coming out of the planning, Door County Planning Department.
Actually,
Yes.
it's coming from our planning department.
Okay,
We're sent a draft copy of this. Mariah's been working on this at the county for a little over a year, and at our planning commission, we asked Mariah, is it okay if we use these? And she said, sure, go ahead. And so we have started using them as a plan commission, and find that it really helps us to collect our thoughts, and to be able to report to the board what our findings are on, like, conditional use hearings or variance hearings. And one of the main things, Bud attends a lot of meetings and deals with a lot of issues, from month to month. And when it comes time for a letter to be sent down to the county in support or non-support of a variance or conditional use, he has this form. We all, on the plan commission level, when we use them, have our reasons for either granting or not granting a variance, or what we say about conditional uses. And when we go around and ask each person, how do you feel about this issue? They're all the notes are taken down in one form comes out of the plan commission, and that goes to Bud. And what it would happen is the board would basically do the same thing when they hear variances that come to the board, or any of the recommendations that they have to then recommend to the RPC or to the Board of Adjustment. They're very simple to fill out, and it's a really good reminder of what was said and why it was said. And in some instances, in particular, if something, as you know, land use can be litigious, in some instances, it's a really good record of what happened at a meeting and why people voted the way they did and recommended the way they did.
Do you make a motion?
I would make a motion that the board try using these for a while and see if it's something that they want to continue. And I would go, well, yeah, that's it for now. I'll talk about it.
Is there a second?
The board or the plan commission?
That the board use these as well.
The board, yeah.
The plan commission already said it.
Right. I would second.
Second. Discussion?
Just one thing, I would agree to be, as I am in the plan commission, the recorder of these things, because nobody likes to be the secretary, and since I'm bringing it up, I guess I can be responsible.
Just kind of as an observation from the RPC, Town of Liberty Grove is about the only town that ever sends anybody to those meetings.
For
With
good
anybody.
reason.
Huh?
For good reason.
Yeah, and we're proud of it.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Utility District, recommendation, Robert E. Lee.
Say, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we have a break? We've been
Sure.
at this for
Yeah,
2 hours.
The restroom, sure.
Just need to.
Want
stand
to
up.
recess for 5 minutes?
Sure, I think my
Okay.
dog needs restroom break.
Peter might have something, I just think.
Yeah. Well, same thing.
I know.
I think it's an after. You can't. I understand that. I understand you too now. Well,
Yes.
John typed it all up. Basically, he can take this to the Corporation Council, the county board. They will not do it because they don't have funds. And Grant Thomas's letter in the fact that they didn't consider the matter, he goes through the whole thing and then says maybe we are willing to meet, discuss the current state of affairs and explore legally and fiscally viable options. Well, yeah, that's an interesting point, but I think from knowing John Tyker, he would act in probably an advisory position to us if we can say that. I mean, he basically went around the two properties, agreed with us. And he did write a letter to Gav. Oh, yeah, they've got one on, Sandy Lane. And. No, not on Garrett Bay Road. Oh, no. Yeah, there are two other properties, and what's happened is, when the town got on John, he and Bart were both haul it out to one of those, and then the neighbors out there were complaining, and the town put it up, they hauled it back.
Yeah, it occurs to me that money talks. I'm not suggesting the town buy it. I'm not suggesting the town buy that property. But surely somebody could have a conversation with Cottage Lynn.
Well, the town at one point had asked John if he could sell it somebody on $670,000. I mean, it was a ridiculous figure for it.
But now the heirs are gonna be looking at possible fines.
Yeah.
The situation might change.
That was one of the 10 or 11 pieces of property that this property task force this past summer had looked at for the town to buy for a visitor center and things like that. And Nancy could probably speak a little better about the specifics of it, but they were not interested in selling. I mean, at any price at that point, that's just not something they were interested in doing.
You get tires and kerosene, that's what I take care of.
The balloon might fly, who knows? Yeah. Well, that was brought up to me.
We talked about that tonight.
Well, and that's why my comment is, if we start this, we're gonna,
I mean, shirts or sweatshirts, because those are right on, very obvious as warm enough.
well, I did make a comment on that, Mitch Larson said something that was, from what Bud said.
Implied that there was something going to happen imminently with that shed that's collapsed being worked to. But he didn't elaborate because we were just getting into session at this point.
Anyway, Russell and Sigrid, we used to, when we had this, our shop down on the Fudge and Confectionery, we had a cow, and they had cows. And they stopped one day and introduced themselves to us, and we kind of got this friendship over the years. And Russ was interesting, he had, and of course, there was a lot of years of it. He'd come up and hug you and give you a kiss on the cheek. Now, wait a minute. But they had us over for 24 years. Let me tell you, they were wonderful.
Heart attack waiting to happen there.
But Sigrid loved telling that story. Quite some time, she thought it would be raining. And it wasn't raining, she couldn't figure out what was going on. Russ was upstairs and they had one deck. Big leak on the side of the generator. No, he was the administrator at Parkland Hospital in Denver. In Dallas.
Hey, Frank, come on.
They would come here in the summer.
Yeah, they were a great couple. Thank you. Camp happy, yeah.
It's in the minutes, more than once.
We did not do anything
Someday I'm gonna sit down and the chair's gonna go wham and hit the,
That's
hit the
happened to
wall.
me already.
I'm gonna go down
Right
on
onto
the
the floor.
Okay, I think we're ready to get underway again. I'd like to go back because we did not address the Burns property on NP in that motion, and I think we need to do that. So if Lou would like to craft a motion to basically do the same thing for the Burns property.
Yeah, I would then suggest that instead of, take the same motion that we just voted on and propose it, but substitute Burns' name or property description, and so have the same thing apply to July 1st. Institution of the fines, the termination of the completion of the cleanup by September 30th, and involving the town in the sanitarian.
Burns to the thing.
Same thing, yeah.
I'll second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried. Utility district recommendation. Peter or Frank?
Peter probably has the technical side better than I do.
This is a study that is required by, I think it's by the DNR, that we have to submit. And Lee and Associates have proposed that for the Sister Bay and also for the town. And each one separately would be a cost of like $14,400. But by combining them doing it at the same time, I think the cost to each is about $8,700, $8,400, something like that. And there was a question, because it is not in the budget, this, by the way, would be paid by the utility district. It's not in the budget. They asked whether we could have it invoiced for January of 2015, and they agreed that that was possible. And also, it gives an estimate, and we said we should consider that as a limit. And they said if we put that on the approval form that you have there, that they would accept that, so.
Yeah, it says not to exceed.
Right.
And this will come out of the utility budget, though, not the town
Yes,
budget.
it'll be a utility budget,
Right,
yes.
okay.
What does this do? Is this required every so often to check the operation out, or what does this do?
This, I believe, is a new requirement, but they require us to have a study and submit this. It's pretty involved, evidently, because you need the cooperation of the people that are actually like in the utility district. Jim Slomsky will be required to help gather all this information together. And it'll be the same thing for the village. They'll be working with them to get all, so it's fairly complicated study and, and report, so.
So I guess is this going after the phosphate standards that may be kicking in?
I don't
No?
think we're to,
No.
no, we're not to
Not yet.
phosphate yet, not yet.
This is just another DNR requirement.
Yeah, and I think it's just how you manage the operation, and they want you to lay it all out, that you're doing all these things to properly operate your treatment plant and your underground systems, your pipes and everything else, that you do have an organized way of making sure everything is being done properly, and it's all laid out in this form, so.
So let me ask you another question, if I may, please. If this is required by all, do you know if more than one PE firm was asked to bid on this, or besides Robert E. Lee? And the question to go a little bit further, if Ephraim and Gibraltar got involved, would that be to everyone's advantage?
That doesn't,
I don't know whether there was an advantage to having a combination, because this is, our treatment plant
is a treatment plant.
Yeah, and so we're sort of an entity by ourselves, and Robert E. Lee was felt to be the most knowledgeable, and if they went, I'm not sure if the village went and talked to anybody else, but they felt it would be much more expensive to have somebody come in and learn all about our
Gotcha.
system, and so Lee was the most appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think Ephraim uses Robert E. Lee. I think they're still
No,
using McMahon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
And
using
probably
McMahon.
Gibraltar is using, well, I don't know. about that.
We've been using Lee since 1970, and I got
Right.
here, so
Right.
it's probably the absolute lowest price we could get, and
Yeah.
by the most knowledgeable people that can do it most efficiently.
Yeah.
And again, we submit annual reports, both from the utility district and from the village, and they're all approved. This is another bureaucracy thing in Madison, where they're trying to create more jobs for more people down there. And I was down in Madison last week, and all you see around is new cars. And during the recession for the last 5 years, employment barely reached 5%. It's down around 4% now. This county is financing hierarchy in Madison.
Business.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the utility district recommendation to engage Robert E. Lee Associates for the CMOM program at a bid not to exceed $8,600 and billable in 2015.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Peter. Consider signing up for video training through Wisconsin Towns Association. You have a printout that was sent to us,
Can you see how much again? Did you say?
8,600. Janet or Bud?
I watched the introductory video on this thing this afternoon, and what it is, it's training videos, videos we can watch of programs that are put on by the Towns Association and other things. All we need to do is sign anybody and everybody up, whoever wants to see it, with a password, and then we'll be able to go. If you go on the town's website now, there's the demo video on there that you can see and give you an idea of what it would be. The video is very good, the audio is good. We're a member of the Urban Towns Association, so we just get it, and all we have to do is do the password thing, and we're signed up for it.
What about the $50?
No, people that are in the Urban Towns Association, members of the Urban Towns Association don't have to pay because the Urban Towns funded half of this
gotcha.
program to start out with.
Right.
And so you could watch it anytime, anywhere, as long as you have access to the website.
Correct.
That's nice.
How much is it gonna cost us?
Nothing.
50 time, just a $50 annual fee.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
They just talked about that thing.
Okay, all right, yeah, I got it.
Well, I'll make a motion, we sign up for the, video training through Wisconsin Towns Association.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion is carried. Ranch Lane would like to close August 2nd from 5 to 10.
Block party?
It's the annual Ranch Lane Block Party. Anybody is invited to come, you don't have to live on Ranch Lane.
Just bring something, huh?
Yes, there's dish to pass, and then you bring your own meat to cook on grills that are fired up. And it has been well-attended in the past. Every year there's a new person that comes, and it's quite a nice, relaxing afternoon.
Then I'd like to make a motion, we grant the request.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Excuse me, consider town board compensation. Hugh,
I'd like to table this to a subsequent meeting.
okay.
I wanna go home.
Okay. We're probably going to 2 meetings a month after this month. All right, you want to make a formal motion, or we just take it
Well-
off?
Let's just put on next month's agenda, is that,
Okay. 20 is done, weed control, Ellison Bay Harbor.
We got a proposal from our people that did it last year. We did it kind of late last year because we didn't realize we were getting big-time weeds down in the harbor. What this will do is, and I don't think I put that in their package,
No,
did I?
no.
They gave us a proposal for doing this, I believe it, around $400, wasn't it? Right around $400. They'll apply for the DNR permit for the approved herbicide to put in the water down there. Some of the people that were in there last year were having problems with their props and getting tangled up, and they were threatening to pull out, and seeing we're having problems with the long pier anyway, we might not end up with anybody in the pier in the harbor.
That was gonna be my question, are we gonna be able to utilize that harbor at all?
I don't know, it's not getting any better. We got a chunk that the sidewalk sunk, and now the part of the parking lot sunk.
is that over by the, where it comes in from the little narrow part there?
Yeah, right by the gate where the
Yeah.
bathrooms are.
Yeah.
A chunk of asphalt about this big just went down now. It's undermined.
Will Heritage Harbor do the weeds in their harbor at the same time? Can we save some money by doing them together and call Smitty?
Maybe they could pay for it all.
Sounds like a deal to me.
I don't know.
No, the permit's just gonna be for our harbor.
Here's a thought, have them take the permit out and we'll decide the actual treatment later.
Well,
Then we'd have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Charles, entertain a motion one way or the other. And the 400 would come out of where?
Well, parks and property, if nothing else.
There you go, Gary. Go ahead, do you wanna make a comment?
When there were weeds in our harbor last year, there were no weeds in Heritage Harbor.
They shipped them all over.
Do we know why?
Probably the makeup at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And now they've dredged, what's gonna happen this year?
A lot. It's a summer to look forward to.
Well, here's the thought, let it go for a month, see if we get weeds. You can tell.
Then it's too late.
Yeah, and that's basically, the weed control is year to year, it's not it's not an eradication, it's an ongoing problem, I guess.
And with the increased silt in that harbor now, we might get an earlier bloom.
Wait a month.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt, I guess, and see how we did it last year. We could wait a month and see what develops
Yeah, and harbors.
with our pier repairs and asphalt disappearing and whatever else down there.
Could we wait until the first board meeting in the first Wednesday of June?
June.
2
That's
weeks, I
2
don't think
weeks.
is gonna hurt.
That's 2 weeks
Because we're
out.
3 weeks behind
Yeah.
with the bay warming up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
let's-
think we've
let's-
got time.
Let's come back to that.
okay.
Operator licenses? None. Correspondence? None.
What does correspondence mean?
Oh, we get all sorts of letters and, people writing us, letting us know, there's a letter here from Pinkard Law Firm in reference to what we were just discussing, the Heritage Harbor, am I correct?
Yes, and they're essentially saying that we have to go over the contractor, go after the contractor.
I
Not,
knew that was gonna happen.
yeah,
Legal dodge.
but,
Is that for the bent pier you're talking about, and the damage?
Yeah. I'm sorry, did that answer the question?
Is it possible for me to present present a rough draft oral correspondence to you this evening.
Sure.
It's up to the board.
How rough?
How rough.
How rough is this?
You know I'm pretty rough generally.
I think, yeah, why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
As I was sitting here listening, dear members of Liberty Grove, during the discussion of the Olson property, I quoted several of the board members because as they discussed that issue, I thought they summed up so well my feelings as I watched you this evening. Lou said early, we politely and respectfully disagree with your opinion. And I would like to say that on several issues. First of all, I heard, and I think I correctly heard, that our new Hugh Mulligan had hours of experience working with highway. He volunteered for the committee and was turned down. I politely and respectfully disagree with that opinion. I heard such a defensive reaction to Carl's letter about conflict of interest, which I have read and I thought he so eloquently presented. I politely and respectfully disagree with your opinion. I heard, and I'm not quite certain how it happened, that Garrett Bay Road has not been considered as a heritage road. I know there were lots of complications along the way, but the fact that it still has not been submitted is something I don't quite understand, and I politely and respectfully disagree with your opinion that it's not there at this particular point. And fourth, I'm not really certain what happened here, but it appears as though the spirit and the purpose of the Heritage Road program, which was so carefully written and researched by a member of our community without pay, just for the preservation of the beauty of this piece of land we all share together. It appears as though the guts and the spirit and the purpose have just been removed from that so much that I think I heard somebody say, North Bay Road's not really going to be any different. Nancy said a couple of times tonight as she was discussing the Olson property, that just seems wrong. And again, she repeated the statement, it just makes me feel so powerless. And I don't know exactly how this fits in, but Lou was talking about pornography when he said, you know it when you see it. And that's exactly how I feel this evening. My husband didn't come because he said, it's not going to make a difference, Cindy. I don't know why you're going. Why waste your time? The decisions have been made. Somebody spoke to you tonight and said, this NDA group, I don't even know, what are there, 6 or 7 people involved? I know a few years ago, there was a room full, 17 of us spoke. I was not one of them. There were 35 of us there. We would have spoken had had the need not been to repeat the same thing. So I guess, thank you very much for this very rough draft letter, but a heartfelt letter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Going on.
Okay, the Pinkert letter, as John alluded to, and it basically says that we have to go after Ironworks. But the sentence also, the letter also says, that is not to say that Bayview does not intend to cooperate with the town in finding a solution to make the pier usable. However, the first step would be to determine what must be done to upright the pier and the cost of doing so.
How's that going, incidentally?
Well, it's been leveled off to where it was last year, or a little bit better, so.
How'd they do that?
Mike was down there and did something.
Who is he? Is he
I think he
billing-
drove it down a little bit and then
is he-
re-welded a bunch of
Is
stuff.
he billing Heritage Harbor, or is he billing us?
Yeah, he's gonna go in there, or he's already been there, I guess.
But is it, who's he sending the bill from the
Not to
town
us.
to do that?
We'll find out.
Oh, on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Board of Adjustment, the Hanson variance was granted 4-1 on the Kinsey Bay
Wonderful.
porch. Library Commission minutes. The paper shredding and electronic recycling day will be June 21st, not June 11, as was mistakenly put out by the Pulse. June 21st from 9 to 1 here at the Town Hall. We'll stick up notices. The Lindum Legacy zoning change is on the county board for approval on the May 27th. A little note from our HVAC guy. There's been a safety recall notice sent out from Well McLean regarding an improperly manufactured gas pipe cap or pipe manifold on some models of Ultra boilers. I've checked all of your serial numbers and your boilers do not fall into this date range.
GM wanted to hear that news.
The village's comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that was sent to us by their clerk. Letter from Mike Schmitz on Porcupine Bay Road. I was planning on getting up at the meeting last night to acknowledge the fine job that your snow plowing crew did this last winter. I had to leave early, so I am writing this to you instead. There was one bad snowstorm after another, and each morning the work was done. You have a competent group, Mike. That's it.
Okay. Future meetings. There's a list of them.
IT, Monday, the 27th at 7 PM. The 29th, 6:30 PM, the civility seminar is here. Saturday, the 31st, 9 AM, the civility seminar is here.
Whoops, what date are we at?
Saturday, May 31.
Okay.
Monday, June 2nd, highway, 8 AM. Tuesday, the 3rd, Parks and Property, 8 AM.
Oh, we've got a conflict there. The fire board is also at 8 AM on Monday.
Okay. Is this a regular occurrence with the fire board?
No, I'm not on the highway committee.
It has been the
Okay.
last couple.
Plan Commission, June 11th. Town Board, June 18th. Sister Bay Utilities, the 24th at 4 o'clock, meeting on the ownership issue.
You're meeting the first and third now, right?
Right. So there will be a meeting on,
We're going back to first and third.
Yeah.
So Town Board on the 4th.
yep,
June 4th.
yes.
June 4. And that's pretty much it, except for keep in mind board review on the 20th at 1 o'clock.
Will it actually happen?
Yes.
Open book will be Saturday, July 26th from 11 to 1. If they get a big turnout and need more time, they'll set another date shortly after that.
Mike,
Are you talking about,
When did you say the IT committee meeting was?
Monday,
It's coming Tuesday.
Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Tuesday the 27th.
but are you talking about June 20th for a board of review?
No,
August
August.
20th.
August 20th, okay.
August 20th at 1 o'clock for board review. And open book for checking assessments is July 26th at 11, from 11 to 1, that's on a Saturday.
Do they notify people who've had it changed, or do you just assume?
those letters probably have already gone out.
Yeah.
Is there anything on the horizon, Bud, for plan on the 11th?
No, I was gonna say that, nothing cooking for planning.
Because if, I'll be meeting with Becky at the end of May, finally, to discuss coordination of reopening our smart growth plan with the counties, and we'll probably have that to talk about.
Okay.
Okay,
Bud, would you add on the 10th of June that the Library Commission will be meeting at 1 PM at the library in Sister Bay?
June 10?
June 10. And you probably ought to get on the calendar that the new garden will be dedicated at the library at 11 AM on July 12th.
okay, before we would adjourn, I'd like to leave you with a little quote.
Thank you.
There are things known and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors. And this quote comes from Jim Morrison.
Geez, sounds like a magician to me.
Light my fire.
Light my fire, yep.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, all in favor? Aye. We adjourn. Thank you.